Exercise 4-1. In this exercise, we're going to use the list of information here in this worksheet to calculate the number of statistics about the room reservations that were made during the Asia Yoga Conference. But before we can calculate the statistics, we need to fill in these three missing columns first. So let's get started. You'll notice that each row in this list contains information about a room reservation. We have the last name, first name of the guest, the nationality, the hotel that they stayed in, the room type, the dates when they stayed in the hotel, the number of rooms they booked, and the room rate, which is the amount that they had to pay for each night for each room. So to calculate the total nights, we need to subtract the check-in date from the checkout date. Now, dates in Excel are simply numbers, so we can subtract them the way we do ordinary numbers. Checkout minus check-in. Press enter, and the result for this particular guest, Barry Lloyd, is 6 nights. Then we calculate the total room nights. Room nights would be the total nights multiplied by the number of rooms. Okay, and the total amount paid would be the number of room nights multiplied by the room rate, because the room rate is the amount paid per room per night. Okay, and now that we've got these three formulas filled in, we're just going to copy them all the way down. Okay, and now we've got these three columns filled in. And that's the first part of our exercise. Now, here are the statistics that we'd like to calculate regarding the attendee room booking for the Asia Yoga Conference. Again, all the data will be based on this list that we have over here. So let's get started. First, we're going to calculate the number of bookings made for the Kimberly Hotel. Note that the answers have been filled in for you up here on this row. So if at any point you would like to look at the model answers, you can just simply click on the cells here and you can see the model answers. But for this exercise, we're going to fill in the formula ourselves. So for Kimberly Hotel, we'd like to know how many bookings were made. For this calculation, we're going to use a function called COUNTIF. COUNTIF will count how many times a particular logical test is true. And the logical test that we'd like to apply for the COUNTIF would be how many times did the Kimberly Hotel appear in this range, D6 to D38, because the number of times that it appeared will be equal to the number of times that a booking was made at that hotel. So remember, we're going to apply the COUNTIF to D6 colon D38. That's the range. So I type equal and then COUNTIF. Open parenthesis. Based on this template, we know that the first argument is the range that we're going to apply the logical test to. And as we said earlier, it's going to be on this worksheet, bookings, D6 colon D38. So I'm just using the mouse to select these cells, and you'll see that up here, the formula has been typed in. I enter comma, I go back to 4-1 because that's where I'm writing the formula. Now, Excel has been modifying this formula based on what I click on, but I'm going to backspace here. I don't want this last one. Okay, so the first argument is the range, which is D6 to D38 on the bookings worksheet, and the criteria is equal Kimberly, I'll make that lowercase, Kimberly Hotel. Okay, and I press enter. And the result is 7. That means Kimberly Hotel appears 7 times in the range D6 colon D38, and that would be equal to the number of bookings. Now, even though this formula works, there's a problem. If I were to copy this formula to all these other cells, I would have to then edit this logical test, and I would have to change it to Prince Hotel Marco Polo, Royal Garden Hotel, and so on. So even though this logical test works for Kimberly Hotel, it's not flexible enough that I can copy it to the other cells. So another way to write the logical test would be to use a cell reference. Okay, so what I've done is I changed the logical test to a cell reference, A7. Now, even if I don't enter the equal sign for the equal comparison operator, by default, Excel will take my logical operator to be the equal sign. So what this COUNTIF is doing is the same thing as what the COUNTIF was doing previously. The only difference is instead of using a specific value as my logical condition, I'm using the value that is in A7. So I'm counting the number of times that the value in A7 was found in the range D6 colon D38. And this should give us the same answer as well, 7. Now before I copy this formula, I have to remember to change D6 and D38 into absolute references so that they do not adjust when I copy them to the other cells. And now I'm ready to pull this down, and I'm going to click the auto sum button, press enter, and the total number of bookings is 33. And that's our short demonstration on the COUNTIF function. Now let's fill in the number of bookings on this cell. Now take note, for this particular cell, we're going to calculate the number of bookings for the Kimberly Hotel, but this time only for standard room type, because there's a heading here, standard. Okay, so again, we just want to calculate number of bookings for the Kimberly Hotel for standard room types. In this situation, we're going to use a function called COUNTIFS. Earlier, you learned about COUNTIF. Now, COUNTIF is only able to take one logical test at a time, but COUNTIFS is the function that you can use if you have 2 or more logical tests. And in this case, we have 2 logical tests because we have to count how many times a booking was made for the Kimberly Hotel and for standard room type. Now, earlier we said that we need to apply a logical test against a range. And for the hotel names, the range on the booking sheet is D6 to D38. The range for the room type is E6 to E38. So this time around, we're going to count the number of times that the value in column D is Kimberly Hotel and the value in room type is standard. And the two of them must be true at the same time. Okay, and for the same row. So now let's enter our COUNTIFS function. Okay, so equal sign, COUNTIFS. Now we have to put the S there, open parenthesis. The arguments for COUNTIFS is quite similar to COUNTIF. The only difference is you can have more than one pair. So let's get started. The first range that we want to count, again, is D6 to D38. And as usual, I'm using the mouse to do the work for me, comma. I go back to exercise 4-1. I backspace to get rid of this bit. Okay, for bookings D6 colon D38, my condition is that it will be equal to the value in A17, which currently is Kimberly Hotel. Again, Excel tries to be helpful, but it fills in the sheet reference, which I don't really need. So I backspace and remove that, comma. Now, my second pair, my criteria range plus the logical test. So for the second pair, it will be, and I click on bookings, it will be E6 to E38, comma, go back to 4-1, and it will be equal to A14. Again, I really don't want to include a sheet reference, so I'm just going to backspace here. Okay, so that is my COUNTIFS, and I'm going to make D6 D38, E6, and E38 absolute references, but A17 and A14, A17 will remain relative, but A14 also has to be absolute, because I'm going to copy this formula and I don't want these cell reference to adjust. Okay, there you have it. The answer is, for Kimberly Hotel, there were 2 bookings for standard rooms, and I'm going to now copy this to the rest of the rows, and I'm going to click AutoSum. Okay, and for standard rooms we only have 15 bookings. Now let's do the same thing for deluxe rooms. Okay, and we're going to do exactly something similar to what we did for standard rooms. Okay, so again, let's click over to the booking sheet. Okay, for the first criteria range, it's going to be D6 colon D38. Criteria will be whatever is in A26, comma, and the second range would be E6 to E38, comma, and criteria will be whatever's in A24, because it's the value of the room type. Again, I'm going to put $signs to make some of my cell references absolute. Okay, and the answer there is 3. I will just copy this to the rest of the cells, and then I'm going to calculate the sum. Alright, and you will notice that the number of bookings for deluxe rooms is 18, number of bookings for deluxe rooms is 15, and together the two of them add up to 33, which is the number of bookings for all room types and all hotels. And that's it for COUNTIFs.